August 1942, the Kokoda Track became the focus of a brutal campaign where terrain and disease proved as merciless as the enemy. By September, the Japanese advance threatened Port Moresby. Australian units, exhausted and undersupplied, scrambled to form defensive lines on impossible ground. Near Isurava, a handful of companies prepared to hold a narrow ridge. Their orders were simple: delay the enemy at all costs. Among them were 40 Australians, raw and seasoned, who would stand where few expected and hold against overwhelming numbers. Their defense later drew comparisons to an earlier famous stand at Rorke's Drift, a parallel invoked by contemporaries and historians alike. This is the story of strategy, courage, and the brutal arithmetic of warfare in jungle war, told through maps, testimony, and measured reconstruction. Isurava sits at a constricted saddle where jungle funnels movement. Control of that ridge meant controlling the track itself. Australian officers assessed the slope, the visibility, and the approach routes, knowing the enemy would exploit every pathway through the foliage. Communication lines were fragile. Resupply was arduous, but the defenders carved interlocking positions along the ridge to maximize fields of fire. Japanese forces advanced in waves, their numbers swelling as reinforcements pushed through the track toward Isurava's slopes. Eyewitnesses later recalled the thunder of repeated assaults and the eerie rhythm of jungle battle, close and chaotic. Numbers tell a stark story. Hundreds of attacking troops pushed against dozens of defenders, testing every defensive advantage available. Defenders used short, disciplined bursts, interlocking fields of fire, and terrain funnels to blunt repeated assaults on the ridge. When ammunition ran low, improvisation became survival. Joint efforts to redistribute rounds and reinforce weak points kept the line intact. Leadership emerged at critical moments. Small unit commanders coordinated counterfire and local withdrawals to avoid encirclement. The Japanese pressed with disciplined assaults, testing each sector, probing for weaknesses under relentless pressure. At times, the fighting closed to hand-to-hand brutality, the jungle suppressing sound but intensifying proximity and fear. Through disciplined fire, sacrifice, and cohesion, the defenders managed to hold critical sectors long enough to blunt the enemy's timetable. As attacks intensified, individual acts of courage shaped the fight. A single rifle, a timely bayonet charge, a wounded man refusing to yield. One account described how a handful of men repulsed attack after attack, holding small features until dawn, forced the enemy to pause. Courses and detritus littered the approaches. The jungle absorbed the echoes, hiding the scale of sacrifice from casual view. Communications finally allowed reinforcements to stabilize the sector. The Japanese withdrew to reorganize, their momentum checked but not broken. When the firing subsided, silence revealed the cost. Survivors counted losses and tended the wounded with exhausted hands and quiet resolve. That night, the ridge held. 40 men had stood where many thought impossible, buying time and altering the campaign's arc. In the days after Isurava, historians and veterans debated the numbers, the tactics, and the human cost of that stand. Survivor testimony emphasizes not glory, but duty, the quiet necessity of holding ground to save comrades and delay the enemy. Comparisons to Rorke's Drift capture public imagination, but the context and tactics at Isurava were uniquely brutal and complex. The stand at Isurava influenced operations along the track, buying time and contributing to the eventual strategic withdrawal of enemy forces. Commemoration ceremonies now draw descendants and strangers alike, a reminder of sacrifice in a place both remote and resonant. The story of 39 Australians at Isurava endures because it reveals how courage, cohesion, and terrain shaped the fate of many.